It was supposed to be a light-hearted morning on ITV's Lorraine. Lorraine Kelly, the ever-cheerful host with her trademark smile, was ready to welcome one of Britain's most controversial figures, Piers Morgan. The segment was meant to promote his new book on truth in journalism, but within minutes, truth turned into tension. Piers walked onto the set with his usual swagger, wearing a sharp navy suit and a grin that hinted he already knew he'd cause a stir. "Good morning, Lorraine," he said, leaning back in the chair. "I hope you're ready for some actual opinions, not just fluffy daytime chatter." Lorraine chuckled politely. "We'll try to keep up with you, Piers," she replied, though a slight unease flickered in her eyes. The cameras rolled, and what began as polite conversation quickly spiraled into confrontation. "So," Lorraine started, "your book talks about honesty in the media, but some people say you're often more interested in provoking outrage than seeking truth. What do you say to that?" Piers smirked. "Well, Lorraine, I'd rather be honest and controversial than fake and forgettable. That's what real journalism is about. Not just smiling and asking celebrities what they had for breakfast." The audience gave a nervous laugh. Lorraine's smile stiffened. "That's a bit unfair," she said calmly. "This show brings people together, gives comfort." "Comfort," Piers interrupted, leaning forward. "The world doesn't need comfort, Lorraine. It needs reality. You're selling sugar when people need medicine." The tension thickened. Lorraine adjusted her notes, visibly trying to keep composure. "I think viewers would disagree." "There's room for both," she replied. But Piers wasn't done. "That's the problem with the media today, too many people afraid of offending anyone. Everyone wants to be nice. I say, tell the truth even if it hurts." Lorraine took a deep breath. "And yet, you walked off Good Morning Britain because someone challenged your truth about Meghan Markle," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. A murmur swept through the studio. Piers froze for a split second before laughing loudly. "Ah, we're going there, are we?" he said. "Yes, I walked off, because I won't sit there and be lectured by people who think royal gossip is gospel truth." Lorraine didn't flinch. "Or maybe you couldn't handle being questioned." Piers's smile vanished. "Excuse me. You talk about truth and backbone," Lorraine continued, "but the moment someone disagrees, you storm off. That's not strength, Piers. That's ego." The audience gasped. Even the cameraman seemed to hesitate. Piers leaned closer, his voice dropping into a growl. "You think sitting there with a fake smile and asking soft questions makes you brave? Please. You're part of the same problem, shallow television." Lorraine's tone turned icy. "You're on this television right now, Piers. And you're doing exactly what you accuse others of, seeking attention, not truth." The air was electric. Producers were whispering frantically behind the glass. One of them motioned to cut to commercial, but Lorraine held up her hand, determined to finish the segment. "Let me remind you," she said, looking directly at him, "this is my show. And I won't have guests come here to insult everyone who works hard to bring people joy." Piers slammed his palm on the table. "Joy doesn't pay the price of ignorance, Lorraine. That's enough," she snapped. "If you can't speak respectfully, this interview is over." He rose from his chair, glaring down at her. "You're proving my point, cancel culture in real time. Kick off the man who dares to disagree." Lorraine stood up too, her expression unreadable. "No, Piers. Not cancel culture, common decency." The studio fell silent. Even the sound of the air conditioning felt loud. Finally, the producer's voice echoed through the intercom, "Cut to break." Now. The screen faded to commercials, but backstage, chaos continued. Piers stormed toward the exit, muttering under his breath. Lorraine followed him halfway, calling out, "You could have handled it better." He turned sharply. "And you could have asked a real question for once." Security gently stepped in as Piers tried to re-enter the set, demanding to finish his truth-telling. Lorraine, shaken but composed, told them quietly, "Please escort Mr. Morgan out." Cameras caught the moment from behind, Piers Morgan being led off set, still arguing, still defiant. The clip would go viral within hours. When the show returned from the break, Lorraine faced the camera with steady grace. "Sometimes," she said softly, "we invite people to share their views. But when a discussion turns into disrespect, we must draw the line." Her calm voice carried weight. "We all believe in freedom of speech," she continued, "but freedom must walk hand in hand with respect." The audience applauded. And somewhere outside, Piers Morgan, fuming in the parking lot, was already typing his first tweet. Greater than, just got kicked off Lorraine. Apparently, truth is offensive now. You're welcome, Britain. Lorraine smiled faintly as she read it later. She knew this would dominate headlines, but she also knew she'd stood her ground. And as the morning sun rose higher over London, one thing was clear: this wasn't just another celebrity spat. It was a clash between two worlds, one that shouted, and one that stood firm in quiet strength. Within minutes of Piers Morgan's furious exit from Lorraine, social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Piers vs Lorraine, hashtag morning meltdown, and hashtag respect matters began trending across the UK. Viewers were divided. Some applauded Lorraine Kelly for standing up to Piers's arrogance, while others accused her of silencing him. Piers, meanwhile, wasted no time feeding the fire. From the backseat of his car, he unleashed a storm of tweets. Greater than, got kicked off Lorraine for saying the truth. The world's gone mad, you can't even express an opinion without being shut down. Within an hour, the post had over 250,000 likes and a flood of replies. Some fans rallied behind him. Greater than, good for you, Piers. Lorraine can't handle strong opinions. Others hit back. You weren't silenced, you were rude. There's a difference. At ITV headquarters, producers were scrambling. Lorraine sat quietly in her dressing room, still shaken but composed. Her assistant, Megan, peeked in with a concerned look. You okay? Lorraine sighed, rubbing her temples. I've dealt with difficult guests before, but he crossed a line. Megan nodded. Social media's going wild. Half the country's on your side. The other half wants him back. Lorraine managed a small smile. That sounds about right. Meanwhile, upstairs, ITV executives were having an emergency meeting. The network's PR head, Simon, paced across the conference room. We can't afford another PR disaster. First Good Morning Britain, now Lorraine. Piers Morgan's name is attached to every controversy we touch. Another executive chimed in, we need to decide whether to release the full uncut footage or issue a statement. He's twisting the narrative. Simon groaned. If we post the clip, it'll just fuel more drama. But if we stay silent, people will assume he's right. As the debate raged, Lorraine herself made a quiet decision. She returned to the studio, asked for a camera, and recorded a short message, calm, direct, and sincere. Greater than, good morning again, everyone. I just want to say this: disagreement is fine. Passion is fine. But shouting people down isn't conversation. I hope we can remember that. Especially when we're all watching from home. The clip aired at noon, and within minutes, it went viral. People praised her poise. Comments flooded in. Greater than, Lorraine handled it like a true professional. That's how you deal with bullies, with grace. But Piers wasn't done. He went live that evening on his own show, Uncensored, calling the incident the perfect example of British hypocrisy. Lorraine Kelly, he said, jabbing his finger at the camera, claims to value opinions, but she can't handle a real debate. I told the truth, and truth hurts. He replayed snippets of their argument, carefully edited to make him look calm and Lorraine look confrontational. His audience cheered. See, he said triumphantly. This is why people trust me. I don't smile and pretend. I challenge nonsense when I see it. Backstage, his producer whispered, ratings are up 20% tonight. Piers smirked. Of course they are. Controversy sells. But behind the scenes, even some of his own staff looked uneasy. One assistant murmured, there's a difference between honesty and hostility. By the next morning, headlines screamed across every major newspaper. Piers Morgan kicked off Lorraine, who's really in the wrong. Lorraine Kelly draws the line. Decency comes first. Lorraine returned to her show as usual, opening with a warm smile that belied the chaos of the past 24 hours. Let's move on, she said cheerfully. Life's too short for shouting matches. The studio audience applauded, but everyone knew the tension hadn't fully died. A week later, ITV quietly released a full, unedited version of the interview. It showed the entire exchange, every interruption, every insult, every attempt Lorraine made to steer the conversation back to civility. The truth was clear: Lorraine had stayed calm, Piers had lost control. Public opinion began to shift. Even some of Piers's loyal followers admitted online. Greater than, watched the full video. Gotta say, Lorraine kept it classy. Piers went too far. For once, Piers Morgan didn't respond. His usual flood of tweets slowed to a trickle. He appeared on his next show subdued, avoiding any mention of Lorraine. Behind the scenes, sources said he'd been told by his network to cool down after advertisers threatened to pull out if he continued the feud. Lorraine, however, continued her work gracefully, never once gloating. In a later interview with The Times, she said softly, "Greater than, we all have strong opinions. I just believe there's a way to express them without tearing each other down." The journalist asked if she'd ever invite Piers back. Lorraine smiled. "I'd welcome him, if he promises to listen as much as he talks." The quote made the front page, and the public loved her even more for it. As weeks passed, the world moved on, new scandals, new headlines. But in the quiet moments of television history, that fiery morning on Lorraine remained unforgettable, the day when politeness met provocation, and respect won the day.